Let's just sew whatever.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are making the new train case pattern from Rosa. It's ridiculous and I love it. I have two others cut out. I don't know what video is premiering first, but probably this one because it's insanely cute. But this train case is such a cute little size. It's meant to have card slots inside, but I did omit those. I just didn't feel like it. It's 2 a.m. so here's the inside. It's finished with binding. It doesn't look incredible, but that is my problem, not yours. Use your staples. Don't be too proud to do it. Just do it. Use the staples. The only interfacing used within this is foam, single-sided fusible foam, Decaville heavy, Decaville heavy. That's it. Look at it. It's so cute. Okay, let's make it. Let's go. Don't forget to subscribe. My pumpkin says you have to subscribe. All right, everybody, we are going to be cutting out the Teresita train case. Probably saying that wrong. I do apologize. I'm going to be making this 3 different ways. I'm going to make one that's clear. I'm going to make one that looks like a pumpkin. And I'm going to make one that's like super quilted out of some different materials. So it's likely going to be 3 separate videos. So I hope you wanted to see a lot about train cases. I've got my materials ready to go. I have single-sided fusible foam. I have Decaville heavy. Decaville light scraps are optional. It looks like we need Decaville light for the body as well as the foam, so that'll be a nice structure. I've also got an 8 by 8.5 ruler and then an 18 by 18 ruler just to make it super easy. There are only 2 pattern pieces that are printable, so if you are someone who doesn't cut with a ruler well, this would not be the pattern for you. Just throwing that out there. I am going to just go down the list. There is a cut list for the pattern. I'm not going to show you, but I do like to use packing tape on my printed piece to use an expo marker and just mark off as I cut what pieces I need. So let's go ahead and start with the top and bottom panel. I am using this medium weight orange vinyl that I carry on my website, as well as some black. And then I'm going to be using this for the handle of the bag. So I'm super excited. It's going to look like a little pumpkin. Hopefully it turns out cute. But we've got our top and bottom panel here. You could trace this and then cut it, or just cut it with a rotary cutter, whatever you feel comfortable with. I'm going to use pattern weights. The weights that I have are just from the Ditto sewing projector system, but they're really heavy-duty metal pieces. I used to trace and cut with scissors, just trace it and then cut it out with scissors, but I've gotten to a point where like I can use a rotary cutter pretty well. And it turns out it has a lot to do with making sure you have a fairly fresh blade and you just go kind of slow. I'm so excited. So if you wanted to, you can, of course, trace. I feel like it's kind of hard when your pattern piece is paper because you don't want to press too hard. I usually like to print with cardstock if I'm tracing, because the thickness of a cardstock makes it a little bit easier to do a quick trace around and then cut with scissors. Just make sure you've got really sharp scissors. Again, who knew the trick to cutting effortlessly was sharp objects? I can tell I've dropped these scissors because they just don't quite cut right. So there's that cut 2 separate ways. That is the top and the bottom. So because I'm using vinyl, I don't feel a need to add any woven interfacing. I'm also using waterproof canvas for my lining, so I don't think I need any woven interfacing for that piece either. There are 2 separate measurements. If you are quilting the body, you'll want to cut it bigger, and if you're not quilting, you'll cut it a little bit smaller. So I love that she included that, knowing that when you quilt it, your fabric shrinks a little bit. So I'm going to be doing minimal quilting to this, so I don't want to cut it. Well, I'll probably trim it down once I'm done quilting and see what we're at. So I'm going to go ahead and use this ruler. This ruler is still not quite exactly the size you need for this piece, but it's not far off. So I'll just cut and add a little bit to it. I'm going to mark my center because I am going to be adding a little pumpkin face to this. So that's going to be my center. I'll set that on my heat press for now. That's the body if quilting. So we don't need to worry about the body if we're not quilting. And then we would be cutting our bottom lining, but I'm going to go ahead and cut out the top trim from that same section. Okay. So that is our top trim. This piece does not require any interfacing, but it does require a lining. That is all that we're going to need this really, really big ruler for until, no, not even the card slots. So I'm going to go ahead and hang that back up. Try to get through this mess I have in front of me. So it did not take much vinyl. We still have to do the handle and the strap, which I'm going to do the green. We've got our connectors. I'll go ahead and cut those out. By 1.5. And then there's a little scrap of Decaville Light that you can choose to add to these for extra reinforcement. And then we have our back panel. Oop, just throw that anywhere. Back panel. I am not going to be adding any card slot interfacing since I'll be using waterproof canvas, which is going to be kind of bulky for the card slots if we're being honest, but I think it will help give the bag lots and lots of structure. So I think it'll end up being a good thing. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out the crossbody strap from my vinyl before I cut anything else. I've got this nice long side. So what I like to do is just fold this in half, make sure it's not twisted, and line up that raw edge. And this is a 3/4 inch wide strap in the end. And I just slide through both of the layers at once. And then I don't need any interfacing for this piece. So I'm gonna go ahead and add it to this bucket here. Look at those colors together. So good. I'm so excited. So that is my strap. And then we need to cut our handle. And then I think it's really helpful, I've never noticed this if she's done it before, there's a line on the cut chart that says total pieces. So it lets you know how many pieces total you should have. And I was like, oh, well that's pretty cool. That's all I'm gonna need of this green vinyl. I'm gonna finish cutting out the pattern pieces completely before I work on the face applique, just so you don't get confused. Just so I don't get confused, let's be honest. Probably cut these out at the same time. Might be a little hard because this is waterproof canvas, but I have a brand new blade on this one. Oof, like butter. This bag is finished with binding, so if that's not your jam, you're not going to be a fan of this one. Okay, So that's my 2 lining of the top and bottom panel. We still need to cut our Decaville heavy, but I'm going to wait until the end. Body, we don't need woven interfacing for this one because I'm using vinyl. We don't need body if not quilting. We do need the body lining. Oh my god, I'm so stupid. I don't need that big ruler. I can use this one. I guess I just thought it was bigger than this ruler could handle. Nope. Extra silly. My daughter just turned 3, and we are in the 3-year sleep regression. And that's been fun. So I apologize if I seem like I need more sleep. I probably do. Okay, so I cut the other one way too big. Oh no, the top was just sitting there. Got me so confused. Anyway, it's fine. Everything's fine. Okay, body lining. Don't need woven interfacing. Top trim. So the ruler size I'm using is, it's an 8 by 24. Okay, top trim and no interfacing. So now we need the back panel. I might skip the card slots because I don't plan on using this as a handbag. I would use it more as a little toiletry bag, but I know its intention is handbag. But I'm gonna go ahead and skip it. I'm going to cut this piece a little bigger than I need it to be, and then I'm going to cut it down. So because I'm not doing card slots or interfacing, all I need to cut now is my stabilizer pieces. So it's taken 13 minutes. Super quick. I honestly want to make a ton of these for Christmas gifts. I think they'd be so stinking cute. I even have these little tags from sewing blurbs that say, made for the best, buy the best. And I'm like, how cute would that be? It's just a little woven label that you just sew around the edges. I'm not gonna put that on this, but like, it'd be so cute. I think one of the tricks for cutting with a rotary cutter is like keeping it fairly close to you and keeping your fingers out of the way. So I turned on my heat press when I started cutting this out, and now it's warmed up and ready to go. So I can just add my stabilizer onto those exterior pieces now. I don't need any foam for the top and bottom. I was debating adding it to the top just to make it look a little puffier like a pumpkin, but I also don't want to vary the pattern shape too much as I am testing the pattern. So I guess I'll skip it this time. Dang it. So now when I am applying the interfacing, I like to warm up that Decaville Heavy on the heat press and get it just a little bit gummy or tacky. I don't have the glue side touching the heat press. I'm just warming it until I can kind of feel it start to stick to my fingertips. And then I'm setting it in place. And then I'll go ahead and let that press for about 10 seconds and then let it dry. Should say let it cool. It's gonna be cute. It seems like the perfect size for those like odd scraps of foam you might have if you make a lot of bags that are just sitting around that you're like, well, this is just kind of too small for anything else. Not for this little baby. And then it's up to you and the pattern if you fuse your foam or not. I imagine because it's cut smaller, you'd want to fuse the foam. So I'm going to do that super quick to my exterior here. Generally, when I'm doing applique, I wouldn't want to add my foam until I was done with the applique. Oh, okay, I see. You want the foam if you're quilting. You want the Decaville Light if you're not quilting. You will not be using both. Very good to know. I was like, wait, what? Hopefully I finished my thought there. I have to pick up my water spray bottle. Because I don't usually want my applique to look puffy, but for this one I do, because I want what I'm stitching on to look kind of reversed, but I don't want to do a reverse applique. It's a lot more work. So I do use water, just a spritz of water on top of the foam to adhere it. I think I'm gonna add a bit of foam to the back panel, which is not part of the pattern, but because I don't have the card slots, which would add quite a bit additional stability and structure. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that an inch smaller, same as the foam stabilizer for the body for the back panel. I'll go ahead and adhere this centered. Other than that, we've got the bag cut out. We just need 3/4 inch snap hooks, 3/4 inch slider, 2 3/4 inch D-rings. If you want to add purse feet to it, you could. If you want to add strap ends to your top handle, you could. But now I'm going to kind of measure my jack-o'-lantern face and get that cut out. So I think I want it to be like 4 by 5, which no, I want the glossy. I was like, I know I have a scrap of it, something like this somewhere. Ooh, look at that. Perfect. So I'm just gonna cut the size that I need, and then I'm gonna draw it out and cut it. And what's kind of fun about using a whole piece as your guide is you could use the cutout area to like center everything if you aren't really good at eyeballing it. It's like I'm gonna do little triangle eyes. And like just 2 big teeth. I think that's fun. So it probably could have been 4 by 4, but there's that. And keep in mind, you're gonna wanna cut these as one continuous shape with sharpest scissors you can find. See if I have, ooh, these are kind of massive, but they're sharp. These are Kai scissors. They're a little big for my liking, but I know it'll be one continuous cut line. And then I've got a bunch of double-sided tape here. I used to like spray baste these kinds of things on too. You could edge coat, you could use a lighter. I have this lighter, but I feel like it doesn't want to work sometimes. Yeah, it needs to be charged. Oh. Yeah, like I get stuff too close to it and then it stops working. Not a big deal. And like, I'm okay if it looks super playful. That's kind of what I'm going for here. Like a McDonald's boo bucket. I love it. Ridiculous. And then I'm just gonna mark out, I guess I'll do straight lines, since like it's not gonna look like a circle, it'll look pretty straight. But I'll just eyeball those at the machine. And I'm gonna add some to this back panel as well. So just to go over the pieces, we have our body exterior that's cut larger because we're quilting. And then we have the body lining that is cut to the correct size so that when we put them together, we know it's the correct size. This is the back panel. We have our top trim, exterior, and lining. And then we have our top, exterior, and lining, top, exterior, and bottom, back panel lining, strap connectors, which you can add some Decaville light to. We have our crossbody strap, and then we have our grab handle for the top. I'm so excited. Little jack-o'-lantern train case. I can't wait. I'm gonna start by appliquing the face and then doing some quilt lines, and then I'm gonna start with the beginning of the pattern just because I have this I want to applique with black thread that's already in my machine. So I'm like, let's start there. If you did not watch the cutting video for this, I hand cut this little face. And I'm using a stitch length of 3.5 to stitch on the little extra pieces. And I'm just going nice and slow so that my layers don't shift. This is a single layer of vinyl on top of foam, and then my vinyl accent pieces. And like, I really want to go for like a playful, silly look, so I'm not striving for perfection here. I'm doing little jump stitches, and then I'll pull my threads to the back. And I'm trying to make sure that my pieces don't shift on me, because I didn't add a ton of tape to them. And then I'm hand cranking in some spots. And then if I want to make sure my needle lands in a specific place, I have my hand on this reverse lever to reverse it as I turn the wheel. And then it just stops exactly where I tell it. I do not have a needle positioner on this machine, but even if you have a needle positioner on yours and you're like, I don't want it right now, you could just unplug it from the motor. So that is always an option. So I'm just pulling on the thread in the back to bring the thread in the front to the back. And then you can tie those off, use some fray check or even glue or duct tape to help secure them to the back. Sometimes you gotta yank. There we go. I didn't even get it. What did I get? I don't know. This is so cute. Okay, I'm gonna switch to green thread now, which might seem a little silly with the orange, but I think it'll kind of contrast enough that it might look black. It'll be fun. I like to use Tex 90 and Tex 70. I feel like most of what I use is Tex 70, but I don't see a huge difference, and I'm not, I have my machine, I mean, it's been 7 years together, so I don't have to play with my tension too often. Rosa writes patterns for domestic machines. So there are a ton of tips and tricks if you are using a domestic machine to make this pattern even easier for you and make it as elevated and sophisticated as possible. I'm only saying that to note that I may not be using some of those techniques just because my machine can handle the bulk and I don't see, like, I'm not selling this one per se, and if I were going to sell it, I would probably take the extra steps to a little more seriously, but I'm just gonna add some quilt lines to give, oh my gosh, that green is so good. I did not mark them out. I kind of want them to just be like a little bit silly. In the pattern, if you're doing the quilting, she does give a specific measurement, so be sure to follow that if you're following the pattern. I am going like up and down, as you can see, to prevent needing to like pull and tie off. It's also how she describes to do it in the pattern. I'm a little tempted to stitch down the face, but I don't think I'm going to. I am going to be quilting just like 1 or 2 times through this back panel. The back panel within the pattern has you add card slots, which is going to add a ton of structure to this section, but I am not adding card slots. So I'm not going to quilt it so much that I lose any fabric, because if you quilt too much, it'll kind of shrink up, but I'm not doing too much. Okay, so there's that piece, and now we can get back to the pattern. So she has us start by fusing everything together, and then we're going to work on our strap and handle. I feel like I have not filmed a tutorial in a very long time, so I'm a little like What do I do with my hands? I guess just make a bag, huh? So I'm going to fold this in half again, and then on top of itself. And this is a raw edged handle. You can edge coat or add strap ends if you would like. Or if you trust your machine to sew through the layers, you could possibly even fold under the edge. I am just going to sew it on. I am using a stitch length of 4 for this. And you do want to go down and around all 4 sides. So there's my little handle. And then the crossbody strap. I'm just taping down the center. You may want to mark out the center, which would be 1.5. The double-sided tape I'm using is from Weft and Warp Co., but I carry it on my website. I also carry all of the hardware that I'm using. Well, pretty much all the materials for this bag are on my website, mormino.com. A friend of mine mentioned to me the other day, like, people always ask where to get hardware, and I don't think they realize that you sell it. And I was like, oh, that's true. Okay, so I'm folding that in half. And then I leave a little tiny gap in the center of the strap to allow the strap to kind of sit better on itself and stay true to size. I love this vinyl. So soft. So I'm holding my threads when I start. If you are new to using an industrial, you got to throw that over my shoulder. I'm so not used to wearing a microphone. So I'm like, is the strap rubbing across it? Is this stuck in my hair? Yeah, it was. And then I go across the short end and then back down. And then I like to trim my extra vinyl nice and straight. And then I've got my slide adjuster here. So I'll start on one end, wrap the fabric around the slide adjuster. And you could either use a rivet or do like a box stitch, 2 parallel lines. I'm gonna do a little box stitch. slide a snap hook through the side we haven't done anything with, and then up and over the center bar, and then this last edge, we'll fold this up, and again you could do a box stitch or a rivet. Okay, and that is our crossbody strap ready for the end. So it's out of the way. Fini. Okay. All right, now is the strap connectors, crossbody strap connectors. Did I cut this out of green or orange? Orange. Go me. So she has a really neat little trick to cut down on bulk and to not really see like where the ends connect. And I'm not going to talk about it. You have to buy the pattern. Gotta buy the pattern. Check it out. But I really think like this is a good pattern library staple. Like, it's such a cute little bag. And I haven't even made it yet. I've only seen it in a video chat. So for strap connectors, I do fold the ends all the way in. To butt up next to each other as much as possible. And then I'm going to use a teeny tiny little bit of double-sided tape to hold these connectors together and then attach to my fabric. It says to top stitch each connector and then rivet it on the bag. And I think that again is like kind of for looks and depending on what your machine can handle. So I'm going to add my D-rings. And instead of doing half and half, I kind of like to do a third and 2/3 with more on the top, especially if you're going to be riveting through. You don't want the rivet to end up in the center of your connector. You want to make sure there's plenty of room for a rivet to go through and be strong holding on to. Personal preference. I'm going to use even more double-sided tape. I swear, like sewing for me is half double-sided tape. Just taping, all the things. Okay. All right. So now she has us organize things into packs. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we've got our strap, strap ends, swivel clasps, all that separate. We've got our body, yaddy, 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 D-rings, logo, okay, and then we have our trim lining, zipper, card slots, back panel, lining, etc., and then our top, bottom, and handle. Handle. Great. Here's my spout. So that'll just help you get organized and figure out like, what is this? What is this? What do I need? So pack 1 is the strap. We just did that. Pack 2 is the body. And I've already quilted it, so we're there. So we'll move on. You can add your nameplate. And then if you're using vinyl connectors, we're going to skip to step 12. Measure and mark 2 rivet holes on the outer edge of the 3rd stitch line. Which would be 3 inches in. And so I'm doing these a little bit differently, so I'm just gonna measure and place and then sew it on. And that's the outer edge of the 3rd stitch line. So yeah, that would be in 3 inches. I'm doing 1 inch down and 3 inches in. So we'll see how that goes. So cute. Again, this is not at all what she had in mind when she designed this pattern, but here we are. And then with my walking foot machine, if I have to go over my hardware, I like to make sure I have a little scrap of fabric to cover so that I don't scratch or tear my vinyl. And then we can pull our threads to the back. Sometimes if you like over backstitch, it's a little bit trickier to pull those threads back. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna grab the top trim packs. So our body exterior, body lining, top trim, etc. So we'll add our zipper to the top edge of our body. I'm just going to use 1/8 inch wide double-sided tape along the top edge of the exterior. I like to make sure I press it firmly into place. And then I've got my zipper quite a bit longer than I need it to be. And I'm going to gently press that into place. I mean, I'm actually going to press it, but you don't want to stretch your zipper or warp it. You just want it to kind of set the way it wants to. And then I'll grab my lining, and we're going to sew all of that together at 3/8 of an inch. And you can tape that piece on as well if you'd like. I'm just going to use clips, so at least I've got it taped in one section, and I want to make sure that my exterior and my lining line up from edge to edge. And then I'm going to flip this over and sew from this angle. And I have a skinny foot on my machine, so I can get closer to that true 3/8 of an inch. And I like to leave my zipper pretty long so that I don't have to move my zipper pulls at all. Oh my goodness. So then I'm going to press this down. If you need to trim any excess fabric away, you can. I'm going to pull this down, make sure your lining and your exterior meet up. I'm just finger pressing, but you could use a seam roller if you need to. I'm going to increase my stitch length to 4.5 for this part. It'll just go a little bit quicker and move through the bulk easier. Back stitch. And then I pull those layers as I top stitch. And you want to make sure that your lining is pulled away from that zipper so that it doesn't get caught in the teeth when you try to zip. And back stitch, beginning and end. I can't. It's so cute. Sorry. Okay, so then we're going to add the top trim piece. So if your print is directional, or you cut it in just a way, make sure you line that up. Go ahead and use some tape. And again, you still don't want to be pulling on your zipper or you'll warp it. I don't have any foam on this part of my exterior, so I'm not going to worry about taping it or anything. Just hold it. And then we'll backstitch through exterior and lining. And I'm going to pull on those layers as I top stitch. Excuse you. Oh my gosh, that's precious. I'm the most ridiculous. Anyway. Okay. Oh, and then we want to baste around all that. And bring your zipper pulls in. I even said, make sure you put those zipper scissors back, and I didn't. Just giving the project a little haircut. This is ridiculous. Okay, back panel card slots. Not doing the card slots. Making it real easy. Okay, got it? Not doing it? Okay, now lay your back panel lining right side up. Oh, add your card slots. I'm not doing it. Now align. And then sew that together at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Ew. Well, that makes a difference. It's this way. Okay. So I believe that it's 6.5 tall, not 7. But I don't believe there's any. Ooh. Yeah, it's 7 wide. Perfect. There is clarification. Love it. I'm here for it. Not mentally, but somehow. So it could be that your project is a little bit off because of seam allowances. If you're not able to get that perfect 3/8 on the zipper, it's not a big deal. You can just trim off any excess on the top or bottom. I don't believe it's an issue, but we're going to be sewing with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And then to help reduce bulk, she mentions you can trim down certain pieces. I don't have to do that. I could. Eek, so cute. We're gonna top stitch. And then we're gonna make like a little sandwich, a little burrito. And I'm gonna baste this side into place. And then add the other. Because we gotta like roll it up real tight. So you don't wanna try to have to hold 2 layers. Just want to do minimal. So don't do too much detail on this because make a little burrito. Real cute. All right, I wasn't gonna use clips, but I gotta use clips. There we go. So now top stitching this is much easier. We're just gonna kind of birth this through a little section. And then it's up to you. I think I'll do exterior out since the lining sits inside the exterior anyway. Oh my, stop. Ridiculous. That might be the hardest part of the whole bag. And it, like, is not hard. It's just different. Not different, but tricky. It's tricky to sew around. Okay, so now we would add purse feet if we'd like. I'm good. I'm gonna baste the top and bottom of that panel. Definitely trim any extra threads. I'm gonna sew all the way around the top. Watch out for your zipper pulls, depending on how big they are. And then again, give it a little haircut. And then we're gonna find our centers. So I'm lining up the back panel with itself. Luckily, the center of the front that I decided to mark out when I cut it is still accurate. So then I'm just gonna snip it. And then I don't have the front center marked. There we go. All right, we are going to baste. If you have purse feet you're adding, you're gonna add those now. If you don't want to see your rivets on the lining side, add your handle now. Otherwise, we're gonna baste these all together, just like 1/8 of an inch. from the outside edge. And then if your lining has any size discrepancy, go ahead and trim it down. It's not going to make a huge difference when we go to bind, but it'll be nice just to have it consistent. And then I'm going to fold this in half to find the centers. And make a snip. You want to have really sharp scissors when you're snipping your centers. Otherwise, you could make such a large snip that you're not sure where exactly the center is because you've got like a 1/4 inch snip and it's like, where is the center of that? So it's risky. Be careful. I was tempted to add a little vine or leaf to the top of this with a handle, but I don't think I'm going to. So we're going to fold this one in half this way. Hot dog. So that we know where to add our grab handle, as well as our centers this way so that we know where to attach this to the bag. Okay. So the handle goes 2 inches in from each center. That's where our rivet is going to go. And then we can rivet in an amount, and we'll line those up. I'm just using my hand rivet, a hand hole punch. This doesn't go through a ton of layers, so just be careful. And it might be tricky to get in to places. So you could use a Japanese hole punch for that, Japanese screw punch, or if you have a rivet press with a hole punch, you can do that. And then we want a post and a cap for our rivets. So I like my post to come up from the bottom, and then I add my cap on top. I normally don't trust just a rivet, but I think for something so little, it'll be okay. I would normally sew in place and add a rivet. Oh my goodness, look at this. Dead. You do have to set your rivets, of course, so I'm going to do that really quick as well. And when you're doing that, make sure that your handle stays straight. It may try to twist, and if you're not sewing it in place, it may twist over time unless it's like really set. This like you know, kind of evens out, but I think like this, it looks even more like a, it just makes me laugh because it's such a sophisticated pattern, and I've made it a McDonald's Happy Meal, more or less. All right, so we're gonna start with the top and then add the bottom. And this is finished with binding. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab some black binding. I think black will look good. I don't really have anything. Well, the psychedelic swirl. Oh no, not with this lining. Anyway, so we want lining side out. You're probably going to want to use staples for this, and then if you have a preference of how this goes, you can do that. I'm going to use a little trick to baste it on the straight side really quick. Now that I've got that lined up, I'm just going to do like 1.5 inches within the 1/8 inch seam allowance. And this is going to be just less stapling or precision that I'm going to need to have. And this is such a small train case that luckily it's not going to take you forever to sew around. It's pretty small. And then just really make sure you trim those threads down. Okay. And then we'll even out the rest. Marking your quadrants is definitely a good idea. But I think we'll be okay. I'm really happy with the interfacing choices I made. It's pretty much just foam and waterproof canvas and vinyl. I like it feels good. Everything's fitting together nicely. We're going to be sewing this in the round. So that is where stapling does come in handy so the layers aren't shifting. But I'm not going to do it. Live dangerously. You may not want to unzip too much or the bag might lose its shape. So I'm going to start in an area I've already basted. We're going to do like 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then we're going to be adding our bias tape binding. I like to use a screwdriver to help hold my layers together and press them into place as I sew along. I like it better than a stiletto because there's more surface area to the screwdriver. And then as I'm turning, I'm pressing all the layers into place. And smooshing again. And this is 7 years of bag making practice, so there's no shame in those staples because I've done it. Leave your needle in as you go. I'm just doing a couple stitches at a time, and then I'll just kind of resituate my layers, press things out of the way / into the way. Yeah, I think for the bottom, I'm gonna mark out the quadrants just to be sure. And then I only have to worry about sewing from like quadrant point to quadrant point. And ensuring nothing shifts. I will probably add binding to this side once I double check that everything looks good. And then I caught all the layers, and then I'll do the other side. So I'm just double checking the shape. I have one little pucker on the back for some reason, but I'm like, it's the back. But my handle and my strap connectors are lined up pretty well. So either they're crooked or the whole thing's crooked, but at least it's crooked evenly. So I'm not mad. And then it's up to you if you want to try to add your binding this way and then fold over like that. But you'd want a wider binding than 1 inch. I am using the waterproof binding that I carry on my website. It has like a grosgrain ribbon texture, but it feels better than that, in my opinion. And then I just use double-sided tape that's 3/4 inch wide to apply it. It goes really fast. And this does not fray except on the end that you just cut, and you're gonna cover it. So I like it a lot. So when I'm applying it, I'll undo just a little bit of tape. Find the back side here. And then I just pinch it around that seam. The tape helps hold it down. And then as I go across a curve, I just kind of pinch it little by little and kind of readjust. Alternatively, you can also buy pre-made double fold bias tape on a roll from Amazon. My friend Brittany prefers that method, and I think it looks good. This just provides a waterproof finish. I'm not able to get printed waterproof, but black works. We have other colors too. All right, so I'm back to the beginning. I'm going to fold a little end under. And there we go. It's on there, it works. And now I'm gonna come in a little bit more than my last stitching to catch the edge, but consistently. And for this, again, I use my screwdriver to help me press around the corners, smooth out any weird wrinkles, just keep everything in line. I'd rather hit the screwdriver with a nail, or not with a nail, but with a needle than my nail or finger, so that's kind of why I do it. And the binding adds an extra level of structure to the bag as well. So I'm going to turn this just to see how it's looking. Make sure I caught everything. Oh yeah, that looks good. And that Decaville Heavy helps add a lot of structure as well. I don't want to keep going. I just want to be done. But I can't put anything in the bag. But you see how, like, the handle will kind of turn since it's not sewn down. So I would prefer to sew it. It's so petite. It's so cute. You can see it opens nice and wide. And then you'd have card slots there if you wanted. And you can close it back up. Oh my goodness. Okay. So yeah, let's go ahead and mark out the quadrants on this part of the bag. So I'm going to clip my centers together, and from there, slowly there we go. And to be honest, it's a little silly for me to have not done it to both sides, because it's really going to be obvious now if the top wasn't centered perfectly. It'll sit a little lopsided, but that's okay. It'll be fine. So there's no purse feet to worry about sewing through. I'm going to line up, make sure you're, luckily this is an oblong, it's not like a circle, so it should be fairly easy to tell which side is which. I'm just going to baste a little bit of that side. And a little bit of this side. And then I can also baste the shorter sides and really have my shit together. So she says to make sure that you open your zipper pulls at this point. Couldn't hurt. Okay. All right, and then I'm going to start on a side that's already basted together. And you're going to have to do some smooshing. And then we're going to do that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Grab my screwdriver so I can make sure I get all my layers together. And now as I'm sewing around this, I can make sure that my quadrant lines match up. Whoa, my layers shifted, but I ran out of bobbin anyway. So like, great. It was just about to shift, I should say. It hadn't yet. Well, thank you, universe. I feel like I haven't even stapled something in so long that I don't know where my stapler is. Oh, yeah, here it is. Do some little staples. I'm not above it. I'm just lazy. And just make sure that your staples are within 1/8 of an inch or so, if you can help it, so that you don't sew through the staple. That'd be bad. That'd be really bad. All right, so luckily we're going to be covering up with binding all this mess as far as running out and messing up a little bit. But as I'm pushing along, I'm making sure I can see that my exterior main is lined up to the exterior bottom. You can see I'm like resituating as I turn that curve. It's really nice to staple. That's nice. I've even used double-sided tape instead of staples to hold layers together, so you could do that too. Okay. Now you do not want to trim down that seam allowance. Normally, when I've used staples in the past, I just trim down the seam allowance to remove them. But that is not the case here, so I have a staple remover and staples, okay. Don't be a hero. Don't just do it by hand. Use a tool. And don't leave them in your bag. Okay, that one was just really in there. Okay, got them all out. So now we can add our last little strip of binding. Yay! Wrong one. We'll fold that under. You can also hit it with a lighter to make sure it doesn't fray over time as well. But luckily it's just that one little spot you gotta hit. And then we'll sew around all of that. And this time at that 3/8 inch. I'm really excited to be done, and not in a bad way. That just means I get to make the rest. Okay. So I caught all the binding on the bottom. Now we can turn it. And since it unzips pretty wide, it's not too bad to turn. You just kind of want to ease those layers into place, pressing the binding. You can see like how reflective and shiny this vinyl is. It's so pretty. I have one little pucker in the back. It makes me sad, but oh my goodness. You can see how cute it is. I'm dead. That's my really bad pucker. It's because I didn't staple, you guys. Nor did I mark out my quadrants. It's in the back. Who's gonna know? Nobody's gonna know. And the balance of the crossbody straps is really good. So I placed those an inch down and 3 inches in. So here is the 3-inch line, so that top corner. It's so cute. Well, I hope you enjoyed making this with me. I know I had a blast. It turned out super cute, and I don't want to get rid of it. It's so precious. Okay, I hope you make one. I can't wait to see it, and I will see you on my next one. Bye.